Hi, I'm Angela Wolf, a fashion designer and online instructor, and today I want to talk about the 20s. Remember the flapper dress? Those were so fun. I'm not sure I would wear that out now, but I want to make something modern with the fringe. It's really fun. So to the far left, I have an original flapper dress. Remember those? And then next to it, this is just a top that's very popular right now. And these are just ruffles. So I thought, well, what if we combine them both, come up with something modern that you can wear with jeans? That's how I came up with this fun t-shirt. This is just a real lightweight knit fabric with fringe attached. I have them on an angle in different areas, and on the back of this top, I only finished the neckline. I didn't want to get too carried away. And there's one more thing. I didn't put fringe on the back for another reason, which we'll talk about in a second. But kind of look closely at how this kind of goes on an angle, up through here, and it's attached into the arm seam here. This is just a band of fabric. The neckline is a simple band, just like a t-shirt. And then here we go all the way down, but notice how these go into the side seams. This was a really easy way to attach this fringe, and I did it to the front of the top before I sewed it together. So let's talk just a little bit about fringe. Some of these are really unique. This one you might recognize from pillows. I just found this at a fabric shop. This one's very similar to what I just showed you on the pink, and this is how it usually comes. It's attached at the bottom, and then you just pull this off when you're ready, after you've sewn it on. It makes it easier to sew than having all of these things flying around. Then I have a piece of black here, because don't rule out using contrast colors. See how fun that would be? And a few more things. This is beaded trim. I love beads, and I love hand beading, but this would be really fun to have this as a trim. It's actually sewn into the seams, so that's another way to do it, but we're going to attach the trim on top of the garment. And then here's one more thing, a piece of fabric here. Look at this. This is really sheer. I'm going to lay it on top of here. This would make a great trim. So don't rule out some of the fun ideas you find in the stores. So let's look at the trim. This t-shirt right here is basically exactly what that pink shirt started before I put trim. Just a band at the neckline. I found this trim, again it's attached at the bottom, just until I sew it on. But all I did to the neckline was pin this around and attach that on. That would be very cute. So let's go ahead and start. First of all, here's my fringe. Remember, when you attach this fringe, it's going to hang down. So don't think that if you have it wrapped around you that it's going to go any direction except with gravity. So I'm going to just lay this on top of my top, and I want to show you on this jacket, I did the same thing, and on the back, what happened? The fringe hangs down. So keep that in mind. Make sure it's something that you like. All right, so I'm just going to pin this in place. I'm going to do this backwards so you can see it. Keep in mind where your chest is. Don't have it go right across the middle of your chest. It would look awkward and be very uncomfortable. So I'm just going to pin this in place, being very careful not to stretch out the garment. See how I'm kind of just if you stretch your garment and put this on, that's what it'll look like. That is not good. So make sure it's nice and flat. And I want you just to see, this is a very sheer, high stretch fabric, okay? I'm not using any stabilizer on the back. I'm going to kind of just maneuver this. If you're really wondering, oh, how do I want this to look, or how is it going to look, if you have a mannequin or a dress form, you can pin this to the dress form and drape it where you want it to go. So you're going to pin everything in place, come up with your design. It doesn't matter what it is. And usually you start sewing from the bottom one up, because that keeps the fringe out of the way as you're sewing. I'm just going to sew this one for you. And I'm just going to trim this. When you trim it, be very careful to cut it. If you look closely, you can see how this wraps around. Cut just like that. And you might lose a few hairs, but that's not a big deal. Trust me, you'll be giving this shirt a haircut when you're all finished with it. So I have it going from the side seam all the way into the armhole seam. This is exactly like the one on the top I just showed you. Let's go to the sewing machine. I have this camera feature that will show me where my fringe is. You can kind of see some of the hair sticking out, don't worry. You can pull those down later. But you want to pick a stitch that would be perfect for a knit. So what about this zigzag here? And it shows me on here what the stitch will look like on my fringe. See that little hair sticking out? I'll fix that. They should all kind of line up, but they move around until you stitch them down. And after you stitch them down, you can still pull them down a little bit, but see how neat that is? So if I wanted to make this wider, we can make it wider. I'm going to make it a little bit longer. See how that shows me exactly how that's going to look on my fringe. So I'm going to pick a stitch length that's not too narrow. If it's too narrow, it's going to stretch your fabric. All right, so we're going to go to the machine. Again, I'm starting in right at the side seam. Put this down. And just start stitching, being very careful not to stretch your fabric. So I'm going to put my finger right here. I'm holding the trim to the top, making sure that nothing is stretching. Let's just start stitching. You'll want to test a small sample on a small piece of fabric before you get carried away and find out that you chose the wrong stitch length. And see how this is kind of just zigzagging across the fabric. Go a little bit further and then I'll take this out just to see what it looks like. Again, I'm just using a standard presser foot and I'm just doing a zigzag, holding my hand here to make sure that the fabric isn't pulling out. If you're pulling your fabric, you're going to end up with a mess. Now on this fringe, I messed with it so long, the bottom part already came off. So it makes it a little trickier to stitch. But we'll look at this closer in a minute. I want to show you a real quick thing on that purple jacket. How I did that was I actually, instead of hemming it on the inside and adding trim, I actually used the trim to hem. So what I did was I added the fringe to this side, to the wrong side of the fabric, and folded it this way. So again, I want to just line up my fringe right to the edge here. I'm doing the same stitch we just did. I'm being very careful to keep it right at the edge. Just go a little bit further here. Now this is a great technique for any jacket or a top as well. So then you would take this and flip this to the right side of the fabric. I know it sounds kind of weird, so the wrong side won't have a finish at all. Now there's two things here. One, this could be the right side of the fabric where you want to cover this up. That's one idea. For the jacket, I wanted to use that as trim. So I'm going to do one more stitch, and then we're going to get up and look closer at that jacket. I'm doing the same exact stitch with this folded to the right side of the fabric. Again, just a little stitch down the zigzag stitch. I am using a contrasting thread so you can see. I'm not colorblind, so this was just to help you see the stitch. All right. And there we go. Now let's take a closer look at that jacket and you'll understand a little better what I'm talking about here. Here's the top. I'll give this a nice pressing, and when this is on, it can stretch to get on your body, but it's not all puckered and stretched out. This will have a little steaming. I see a little bit of stretching through here, but a little steaming, that will be gone. So that's part of the top. I'll add more there. Now let's look at this jacket a little bit closer here. Again, see this seam is totally finished because I did the exact same thing. See that? Now I angled this a different way. What I meant about thinking of which way this trim hangs, on the jacket here, notice how the trim just kind of hangs down on the sleeves. The trim is going to hang down. Now what happens to the back? Well, because you have your fringe sewn on, let's look at this really close. I just kept the trim going all the way around like this. See? And this is going to fold over this way. So again, get a close look at the back. Just like that. Now if you don't like that look, what you would want to do is once you got the fringe to about here, you'd want to flip it so then the fringe would hang down. So that's just another idea. And again, on this purple piece, what I was mentioning at the sewing machine is I could have, if this was the right side of the fabric, I could have sewn the fringe to the wrong side and covered this edge up. That's another idea. just like that. And again, this is how it comes with this little white thing. You just pull it off, and you'll end up with fringe, just like this. So those are a lot of ideas for you for fringe, a very casual outfit. I would definitely wear this with jeans. And again, how I did the neckline was I finished the ribbing and just attached it the exact same way and put the top together. And one more quick thing, maybe you don't have time to make a shirt from scratch. Let's just say this is a t-shirt that you bought. You can add it to this without having to make a top from scratch. Remember I said don't go all the way around the body? Well, let me just show you on here. You could technically take this and when you get to the sides, fold this over. There's tape on here. That's how they give it to you in the store to make sure it doesn't ravel. Just fold that over a little bit and start at the side seam. Nobody will know the difference. So you could purchase a top that's already made and attach the fringe. I already showed you about the neckline. One other thing would be along the edges. So this should give you a ton of ideas to take fringe from the 20s and make it modern.